Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews in the podcast form. Today we are talking about a Netflix original, and this is the one time I felt like in a while where I'm like, wow, I wish this movie was available in theaters. I know it's screened in New York and LA and a couple small places, but Extraction 2 is badass. I mean, I enjoyed the first Extraction, but they really ramped things up for this sequel. Extraction 2, directed by Sam Hargrave again. Sam Hargrave, who's been a stunt coordinator for anything from the Avengers movies. He did work on Thor Ragnarok, Suicide Squad, Captain America Civil War, the Hunger Games films. I mean, he's been a fight choreographer and stunt choreographer for most of his life. So this is totally like the John Wick deal where you're starting to see these stunt choreography guys get into filmmaking because they know what kinetic and intense and awesome action should look like. And, I think the story even is also a little bit better the second time around. Not that there's too much plot to bog you down with, but we come back and we join Chris Hemsworth as Tyler Rake again with his team of Yaz and Nick, played by Adam Besa, and Golshifteh Farahani, both rejoining from the first movie as well. Joe Russo and Anthony Russo helping write this story again. Those are the guys behind Captain America Civil War, behind the Avengers Endgame and Infinity Wars. They've done a lot of Netflix programming themselves with The Gray Man. They've done a couple Tom Holland movies and shows that they've kind of produced with them. But what I've felt like is they are much better serving as writers or producers on something, at least when it's come to their work post-Infinity War. Because this blows their movie out of the water. The Gray Man? Psh, no. The Rake Man, Chris Hemsworth, this dude, he's a freaking badass. This is like the Chris Hemsworth that I want from the Thor movies. Now we've got jokey Thor. We're going to make him beer belly Thor. He's just going to be a comedy star and a goofball and whatever. People are eating it up. I enjoyed Ragnarok. This latest Thor, already forgot the title. I can't, I'm not bothering to look it up either, just because it was such a letdown, because we're getting so far from what the God of Thunder is supposed to be like. I'm not saying he's got to be a badass all the time, but Chris Hemsworth in this film uses his physique to his advantage. There's a seriousness to which he portrays the role in taking all these military ops super seriously that just lends itself so well to the story and the overall feeling and investment that you have in this. So after surviving their mission in Bangladesh, Rake is back. His wife, his sister-in-law, who's going to be played this time around by Tinatin Dalakshvili. I'm botching that name, I apologize. She was married to a Georgian arms dealer. She's got 2 kids, and she needs to get them extracted from the country. And obviously Tyler Rake and his team are the only one that can do that. And so after getting a little bit of the background for the drug dealers and all the war criminals and whatnot, cool, we're just going to dive right in, and we need to get them out. And this movie plays like the best versions of Call of Duty or Battlefield, and I mean that truly in a really, really congratulatory way, and almost like a really surprising way, because in those series of video games, even though we feel like we've kind of played and seen the same stories before, they're genuine moments and missions in those games that are just so intense, so lifelike, so incredible with the action that they can present, whether you're moving from aerial vehicles onto a moving train, and on that train you're jumping out of a car that's in one of the carts, and this movie moves so quickly. I mean, it's only 2 hours, and I wish it were longer because I just was like, dude, what's going to happen next? Where do we go to next? I'm like, all right, we got guys on RPGs and bikes coming up. What's going to happen to them? There's a whole prison yard escape scene that just brought me right back to the Raid 2, and, people fighting in the mud and just getting stabbed and whacked with anything you can find. I mean, this movie's hardcore, though, too. The blood and violence is taken up many, many notches. And the first one was already crazy. I mean, some of the shit you see in this movie with how people die or are maimed and injured is like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, he tore a man's hand in half. I didn't even know that was possible, but I'm like, oh my God. I watched this with my buddy and just like every few minutes we're like, dude, what the? I'm like, oh my God, no, he did not just do this. It's just nonstop, and it's a freaking great time. It knows exactly what it is, but damn, it takes itself seriously in the sense that it never gets so self-aware that they're going to be jokey and like, can't believe I just ripped that guy's hand in half, you know? Whereas a lot of movies today would probably end up going like, oh, God, did you see what happened? Not a good time to lose one's head, you know? If every superhero movie or action movie could do what Austin Powers did in his delivery, then maybe some of those jokes would work. But Extraction knows when to take itself seriously. Chris Hemsworth has some really funny moments that are sprinkled in that feel like something the character would say or do. You know, it never feels like, oh, he's just trying to elicit a laugh here. But dude, I just, after watching this, I'm like, I went around to all my friends, regulars at work. One of my bosses, it was like, hey, I know you've got Netflix, so you gotta check this out. I mean, this thing is awesome. You know, Idris Elba, Olga Kurylenko, a few other people are in this movie who are added in. I don't know if they necessarily needed to be there. Not that I dislike them or anything. But they weren't so central to the story necessarily that I was like, all right, yeah, we got to get Idris Elba in this movie. I don't know how much they paid him for this, but it feels like he just kind of showed up, talked to Chris Hemsworth a couple times, and that was it. I was like, man, have him join the fight, go kill some people or something. I don't know. But my gripes with this film, really minor. You know, there's a couple shoddy shots of a helicopter that I think is real, but maybe it just didn't look super real in the movie. But regardless of that, Extraction 2 is exactly what an awesome action movie needs to be. This is something that Arnold could have, probably even would have wanted to do back in his heyday. These stunt choreographers, man, Sam Hargraves, hats off to you, because this thing's freaking awesome. And after watching all the John Wick movies, after watching Atomic Blonde, I think there is a justification for having an Academy Award for Best Stunt Choreography. I'm like, you should have Best Stunt Actor or Actors or Ensemble, because the work that they are doing and the worlds that they're able to pull off and show us more realistically, I'd say, than most, it's just unreal. I'm just consistently blown away with some of the action movies that we've been getting, and watching some of the behind the scenes and how they do so many of these shots, handing off cameras from a bike up to a helicopter and so on. I mean, it is so cool to see practical effects being used more so than the CGI, because it really, really embeds you in that world, and I think it completely pays off for what they're trying to do. So anybody with a Netflix account, yes, you should watch the first Extraction. You could just watch the second Extraction and have just as great a time. I'd recommend both. Love Hemsworth in both of these movies and the supporting casts. They have just done a bang-up job. Obviously, I feel like there's got to be an Extraction 3, and there should be. This puts so many of the Netflix original movies to shame. It's like if we sat through 100 Kissing Booth 3s, and For All the Boys I Loved 5s, and Red Notices, and every freaking Rock and Ryan Reynolds movie, we deserve one badass, cutthroat action film. And Extraction 2 delivered, I'm happy to say. So go watch it now. I hope it's not long before we get another film like this. But again, you know, these stunt guys, they're just getting started, and the shape of Hollywood is going to change. Mark my words. You know, action and superhero and sci-fi can only get better. And I think people need to look towards these films and those directors to get a better idea of how to better immerse their audiences. So I'll shut up. Go watch the movie. Seriously, it's gonna change your life. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.